Namaskar. In this video, I shall be talking about existential philosophy as it is being reflected in some of the philosophical assumptions of the philosophers like Soren Kierkegaard and Martin Heidegger. In the previous video, I was talking about a brief introduction to certain philosophical tenets of existentialism. Today, I shall be trying to unravel some more engagements, concerns of this philosophy with the help of philosophers like, as I said, Soren Kierkegaard and Martin Heidegger. Soren Kierkegaard was a Danish philosopher and he was a theist existentialist. Theist, I am quite sure that you know the meaning of theist, one who believes in God. So he believes in being an existentialist, or one can approach him to be an existentialist philosopher, but one must also remember that he was a theist one, not an atheist one. Theist and atheist are two broad categories where one can accommodate number of existentialist philosophers. Kierkegaard opposed Hegel's absolute system of thought. Hegel's absolute system of thought talks about absolute idealism, absolute consciousness, absolute mind, absolute spirit. That is whole. That is all encompassing. It's a totalizing thing. And in this system, there is no scope or place for an individual experience. Whatever one finds in the finite world is mere copy, false, fake, unreal versions of that absolute system of thought. This Hegelian absolute system of thought is very much akin to Plato. And Plato, who has been hailed as a kind of philosopher who has been providing space for every Western philosopher. And as a very noted critic, Whitehead, says, all the Western philosophies and philosophers have simply added footnotes to what Plato has theorized and talked about. So Plato's concept of form, absolute form in terms of essence, Hegel's absolute system of thought is that essence. So this keyword essence, which I also mentioned in the first video, in terms of essence precedes existence or existence precedes essence. Kierkegaard considered him to be the greatest enemy of mankind. As far as the authentic experience is concerned. So, in the absolute system of thought, there is no place for individual experience. And there is no, if there is no individual experience, how can one talk about authentic individual experience? So, Kierkegaard also believes that man not only lives but exists as well. So, living and existing, these are two important terms which I think you must ponder over. Are you living or existing? So, even animals live, fishes live, birds live, right? What about us? Are we them? No. We are human beings. So, we don't only live, we exist. And this existing aspect is related to certain involvements, certain authentic experiences, which have been denied to us, which have been not been allotted. So, a human being not only lives, he exists as well. According to Soren Kierkegaard, objectivity takes human beings away from existential realization of truth. Objectivity. Try to understand the term objectivity with the help of the term subjectivity. In the previous video, I was talking about ideas. Ideas whereby you come into this world and you have to adopt certain ideas, certain ideational identities. So you are born and you become the part of certain semiotic, certain symbol structures. You become something else, but not you yourself, he himself, she herself, I myself. So objectivity takes us away from true existential realization. Genuine philosophy is extremely personal. So is the case of God as well. Think about it. So, genuine philosophy is extremely personal. John Keats once wrote, the axioms of philosophy must not be adopted until unless they are tested in the heart. Philosophy should not be conceived objectively, it should be conceived subjectively. Not only philosophy, any kind of truth with capital T or truths with small t. Value judgments, certain essentializing attributes, presences, they must not be accepted. And he has gone to the extent of saying that even God must not be accepted if one is not feeling God, if one is not experiencing God personally. Kierkegaard is against institutionalized version of Christianity where God is a customer a God is being sold through the institution of Christianity. People are not interested in the tenets of Christianity, the teachings of Jesus Christ. They are more interested in corruption, money making processes. They are more interested in using Christianity and reducing to churchianity for merely business purposes. So, in his system of thought, though he is a theist philosopher, he is not a blind theist. His eyes are open, the eyes of the mind. And he cannot invoke a whole multitude of people to accept Christianity because he is accepting Christianity, he is believing into Christianity, he is a Christian, so others too should be Christian. Christianity is the best religion. He doesn't believe in all these things. Kierkegaard talks about three spheres of life based on one's own choices. It means that these three spheres of life, first of all, they are not hierarchical at all. And second, any of these spheres must not be given as a valid sphere of life, authentic sphere of life, the leveling of true sphere of life. You can go for more than three spheres of life. That is most welcome. So he talks about three spheres of life based on one's own choice. Aesthetic, that talks about physical and intellectual pleasures. It's quite possible that all these three spheres, it's not possible this is there to be lived in one's own lifetime, in one's own life cycle. It's up to the individual what he is going for. Is he going for aesthetic? Is he going for ethical? Or is he going for religious? So aesthetic stands for physical and intellectual pleasures. Ethical stands for a kind of adherence to certain sets of moralities and duties and responsibilities, values and principles. And religious, which is complete devotion to God. Remember, this complete devotion to God should not be warranted, should not be a pre-given idea by church, by priest, by any panditji or by any religious, if I can call, agents. So these are three spheres of life. It's quite possible that one may live these three spheres in one's own lifetime, depending on his or her own choice. He may prefer aesthetic, he may prefer ethical, or he may prefer religious as well. And there is no hierarchy involved. It's complete one's own choice. So, Soren Kierkegaard, certain basic assumptions, certain basic important rudimentary aspects of the philosophy of Soren Kierkegaard as an existential philosopher. Next we have Martin Heidegger. Heidegger was a German philosopher. And let me put it at the outset that Heidegger himself didn't claim to be an existentialist philosopher. He didn't like to be termed as an existential philosopher. But his ideas are very much close to certain assumptions of this philosophy. So let us try to consider, let us try to talk about Heidegger and see to what extent he has this existential affinity or affinities. So he is a German philosopher, and he talks about deism, being, which is neither absolute in freedom nor is determined by reason solely. This deism is not neither absolute, it's not absolute in terms of God, in terms of absolute idea, in terms of form, right? So it's not absolute in freedom, nor he is totally determined by reason, where reason has been given, uh, allotted a greater importance by Hegel. The human beings inhabit in a world which is made of things and articles. Things and articles, think about it: commodities, relationships, and one individual being, one deism, one human being cares for these what? Things and articles, loves them, and this love in turn puts that individual in trouble, and trouble comes out from the fear to lose. A man is obsessed with the world. And what is world? World is made of things and articles. Mobile phone, laptop, watch, home, relationships in terms of parents, brother, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, son, daughter, and what not. And this caring, this love turns out to be in terms of obsession for these things and articles. And this leads a human being into errors. Errors. And these errors constitute the whole of one's life. He becomes they. It means what? In one's lifetime, if I try to broaden the meaning of essence, can we talk about essence in terms of something that is outside us? That is an object lying outside our body, our mind? In terms of relationships, in terms of certain commodities, in terms of whatever we have accumulated and gathered? Think about it. And don't you think that we all are so much into these things and articles? Do we have enough time for self-brooding, self-thought processing? Do we have time for us? perhaps no, we don't have time for us. We have the time, but for others. We are busy. We are very much busy, you see. But are we busy for ourselves? No. We are busy for others, for things and articles, for essences in the extended version. We care too much for the laptop, for the mobile phone, for the relationship, for the home. Do we care for ourselves? No. So in that process, he becomes they, we become they. Means what? We ourselves become things. We ourselves become articles. We are commodified. We have no self-awareness, we have no self-consciousness, and we become commodity. We become things and articles. And this is the greatest hindrance as far as the very idea of authentic existence is concerned. We can't live authentically because we have been living for others, we have been living for something that is not authentic, that is not genuine. Heidegger says that death is the only clue to an authentic living and experience. Death is the only clue to an authentic living and experience. It's a very difficult aspect. How can one die in one's own lifetime? And if one dies, can have one the awareness of being dead? One can see other dying, but the experience of one's own death is unique. So death is the only clue. This is purely existential dilemma. According to Heidegger, in one's lifetime, one cannot have the authentic existence because one has wasted his or her lifetime simply for others, and he has become other as well. So in that dire scenario, what is the way to have that authentic experience? According to Martin Heidegger, death is the only clue. Death is the only way. Because nobody can die for others. One has to die on one's own. So death is the only clue. Death is the only authentic living experience, according to Martin Heidegger. So, according to him, existence moves between nothingness and nothingness. And according to him, life is but nothingness. So, this idea of nothingness is very important because it puts into question, it puts into bracket essentialized terminologies, original terminologies, absolutes, forms. So existence moves between nothingness and nothingness. Life is nothingness. I shall be talking about this aspect of nothingness more in terms of the most important philosopher of existentialism, that is Jean-Paul Sartre. So life is nothingness. Life is based on nothingness. Death should be welcomed and embraced to have a genuine existence. Death is the only way. Death is the ultimate way. Whenever one is thinking about authentic existence, we always try to defy death. We always try to our the best to be away from death. I don't want to die. Let me live more. But for whom one is living? For himself? No, for others, as I was talking in the previous slide. So death should be welcomed. Murakami says, in a Japanese writer, death is not the end of life, death is the part of life. Very interestingly. Death is what? Not the end of life, death is what? Part of life. Let us live death. So, these are certain philosophical assumptions of Martin Heidegger. I know they have been very, to a certain extent, abstract, but I would request you to approach these personally and then think and then rethink, live and relive, and then I'm quite sure that you shall be in a position to understand what Kierkegaard has been arguing, saying, or to what Heidegger has been saying or arguing. Thank you. Thank you so much.